If I suddenly leave the game, it's because I pressed the wrong button for my push to talk.
Okay, good to know.
If I suddenly leave the game, it's because I pressed the wrong button for my...
Okay, so I think we're about ready, pending any sudden departures from button pushing. So, first things to go through, welcome to Frontier Age. Specifically, the super amazing Group B of Frontier Age, who I want you to in no way feel that you are at all lesser or different because you're in Group B. If anything, I think we've got this nice tight group of 3 or 4 people, so I'm quite excited how it's going to work. In terms of how we're just going to run the session today, it's very much meant to be kind of an introductory session, so I'm going to take things at a fairly slow pace. And how I'm going to do that is pretty much I'm just going to review a little bit about the setting and the game. I know you guys have a reasonable idea, but just to kind of refresh your memories, and also for anybody watching, they can get a sense of what the setting's like. And then after that, I thought I would ask you 3 if you wanted to maybe introduce your character, tell us a little bit about them. It doesn't have to be, a really long-winded introduction, but if you could tell us a couple of things about your character, that would be really cool. And then we'll get going. We'll have a little bit of an adventure, a little bit of combat, try out some of the different rules that you get in Fantasy Age in different scenarios. I will say, obviously, I've run one session before with the other group, but it's perfectly possible we might have the odd technical hitch. So if that happens, please bear with me. We'll get them ironed out as we move along. The other thing I like to flag up is obviously, there's only a few of us in here, and we're all used to communicating when we're playing games and stuff in Discord, but I think it's worth mentioning, because we're not all sitting around a table, like, in someone's kitchen or in a pub or anything. Like, interacting over the mic can mean that sometimes people will, end up interrupting each other or whatever, and just to be aware. Obviously, don't feel like, oh, I can't talk so I don't want to interrupt anyone, but at the same time, just be aware we need to sort of work with each other in terms of being able to communicate. So, now that all that technical stuff's out of the way, does anyone have any questions before I introduce the setting?
Not really.
Okay,
Not
cool.
really.
So, I will try and keep this brief. I could go on for hours, because this is kind of my baby. I've been building this setting on and off for quite a long time. But Frontier Age takes place entirely on the world of Umber, but as you're probably aware, Umber is actually a habitable moon that orbits around the larger world of Verdant. And Verdant is essentially where you're all from. It's this fairly typical, in inverted commas, fantasy world that I have deliberately left quite undefined, so that people can make essentially whatever character they want. But that said, there are a few key features about Verdant that are relevant to the game that I'll just go through quickly now. So, almost all of the world of Verdant was ruled for the last century by an empire called the Vox Imperium, which was essentially an alliance of elves and humans who ended up conquering most of the world, either through war or diplomacy. That recently came to an end as a result of a massive civil war, which split every race, every kingdom, every region kind of square down the middle. So you had dwarves fighting dwarves, elves fighting elves, like everyone kind of fought for their ideology rather than their nation. And ultimately it was the rebels who won the war, and the Imperium was dismantled. And in its wake we've got this kind of new United Nations-y type government called the Confederacy, and their angle is essentially all of the different nations and kingdoms on Verdant, they can do their own thing within their own borders, but like we kind of want to work together while respecting each other. So that's kind of their deal. While Verdant, as I said, is sort of a typical fantasy realm, in the last, as a result of the war and then sort of lots of innovation that's happened afterward, the last decade has been very much characterized by this sudden rush of steam-powered and magic-powered technology. And this has led to a sort of rapidly industrializing capitalist system under the Confederacy. So there's lots of innovators and entrepreneurs and like people inventing crazy new technologies, and there are also people called form crafters who have combined a lot of this steam technology with magic to make these like incredible machines that can do things that nobody could do before. And the reason I mention this is because one of those things that they made was the ability to make teleportation devices that could allow people to travel across the world and even to other worlds, like Umber, which is essentially what you're going to do. Now, Umber, as I've said, is this large moon, and people have always wondered about it. Since about 100 years ago, giant cracks sort of just overnight appeared in the surface of this moon. Like some sort of incredible catastrophe had happened up there, but obviously nobody knew what had happened. But it got people thinking, an apocalyptic event of that size is quite odd as a geological event, so people started to think, oh, maybe it's habitable, maybe there's something up there, maybe there's people up there, and they're the ones wrecking their own planet. So people's got this idea in their head, like, oh, maybe that moon has life on it. And once all of these teleportation formcraft devices started being invented, you got this kind of like a space race, except it was like a race to the moon started. So you had all these big like engineering companies trying to invent different teleportation devices to see who could get up there first and check it out. And there's actually this very small startup little company called the Adventure Trading Company, who are normally just called ATC. They actually, against everyone's expectations, cracked it. And they built this big device called the Arc Gate, which is essentially like the Stargate, if you watch that show, or it's like the Dark Portal from Warcraft that we all know. Like, it's a big portal, and you can step through it, and as you step through it, you immediately transported on a different world. In this case, it takes you onto Umber. And they went there, and you might not be surprised to find out, oh, Umber is inhabited, and it is a place that people, from Verdant could travel to. And not only that, but they found that while it's quite a hostile environment, it's also full of resources that are very valuable to people from Verdant. So you've got sort of things you might expect, like oil and gold are in abundance. But there's also new kind of resources, because there was this, as I said, sort of this catastrophic event that shattered the surface of the world. And it seems that was a magical event, because it's left vast chunks of the earth with like this magically infused rock, which make this incredible fuel source. All of which essentially means that once the ATC opened up the Arc Gate, everyone suddenly wanted to go to Umber, and this great colonization effort started. Not just because there's money to be made, but also you can imagine in the wake of sort of the recent civil war, there's a lot of displaced people, and there's a lot of people looking for a fresh start. So it's got that appeal. That very much in the same way, people went from Europe over to America in sort of times past, in Wild West times. Everyone wanted to go there and start afresh. So loads and loads of people are travelling through the gate. Hundreds of people go through the Arc Gate every day on this train, which is called the Golden Express. For a small fee to the ATC, you can get on this train and travel to a whole new world. And it's a huge success. There have been a few problems. with that colonization effort, because, as I said, Umber is habited. So while there hasn't been too many contact situations with the natives, like, it is known that they are out there, and the few times that like the ATC and colonists have come across native life, it's often been hostile. So that's sort of like a situation bubbling, waiting to happen. Also, very recently, it's emerged that the ATC has competition in the form of this other company called Reinhold Industries, who have completed their own gate. And so somewhere else out there on Umber, there is this rival company who has some sort of setup going on, but we don't know exactly the extent of that. So essentially now there's this race on to capture as many of the resources as possible. So I tried to keep that short. That was actually a bit long and rambling. But the short TLDR version is: you are all going through a magic swirly gate to explore a Wild West steampunk world, and I want you to have fun with it. So, yeah, I could have just gone with a short version, but hey. Now I thought it would be nice maybe for you three to introduce yourselves, just like a little bit of information about your character. It can be a short introduction or it can be a rambly one. It's up to you. Would anyone like to start?
Well, that's what I can.
Okay, cool.
Hold on, I just.
Pull up your info.
Yes. Here we are. So, Garrick Thorne is a young lad born to a wealthy family in Vernon. The smart kid had a promising future ahead of him until the Civil War ruined his family. After losing their patriarch and having the family's famed horse ranch burned down by the Vox Imperium, the family was in dire straits indeed. After the arcade was completed, Garrick, like many other adventurers, set out for Umber in order to stake a claim to its bountiful resources. Thorne is generally a good-humored fellow, and while he prefers to resolve problems with words or trickery, he has no problem using his trusty pistol to put a permanent end to his adversaries. Thorne will usually take on any paying job, since it means getting that much more money to get his family back on its feet.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So essentially, he's kind of like a young guy from like a well-off background who's sort of been forced into taking less than noble profession.
Yes. He's currently working as a bounty hunter, and he pretty much takes on any job that pays.
Okay, cool. I like it. Who would like to go next?
I can go next.
Okay, go for it, Six.
So, Theodore Runeshell is a human mage of medium stature with white hair he keeps short and a pair of round glasses. Theo is an apprentice to an elven mage named Belnas Skywhisper, who recognized Theo's aptitude towards magic at a young age and took him in. Belnas is a strict master who is trying to make Theo a proper traditional mage, but much to his master's irritation, Theo turned out to be a rather unorthodox student. Fascinated by dwarven runesmithing and tales of famous gunslingers, Theo is determined to apply his magic with his revolver and show his master that his way can work. Theo arrived to Umber to acquire materials and knowledge to advance his style of magic and hopefully make some name for himself in the process.
Okay, cool. So essentially, he was studying magic under this elven mage, but he's kind of striking out on his own with like, well,
Gun
essentially gun magery. I don't know if that can be a word, but so he's sort of discovering how to combine magic and using weapons together as one.
Yes.
Okay, cool. And he sort of it sounded like he's sort of discovering it for himself, which I quite like.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Tickle, what would you like to tell us about Sebastian?
Well, Sebastian, or White Wolf, to anyone who isn't a friend, is from the northern part of Verdun, where,
Okay.
where it's cold and hostile. He was a proud member of the Vox Imperium army,
Okay. Yeah.
and basically, someone betrayed him, and he lost an eye and an arm.
Right.
He's searching the world to get revenge, or to find that person and pay them back. That's about it.
No, that's fine. And I think you said when we were sort of doing the practice session that you're going to hold on to exactly what happened with that story and sort of bring it out as you go along. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically more will be revealed later.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I like that. And so yeah, you've got what a mechanical eye and a mechanical hand.
But they're both rush jobs, so
Yeah.
no.
So you don't get the benefit, like, because we made rules for having mechanical eyes and mechanical limbs and things like that, but we've given you the basic version where you don't get any bonuses for using them. You've just got, it's more aesthetic at this point.
Yeah, until I can get it upgraded somewhere.
Yes, exactly. Such things are expensive, but you never know what might happen. Okay, cool. So, if there are no further questions, we can go ahead and get started. Cool. I will take your silence as overwhelming enthusiasm to get started.
Yes.
So, to begin, I will move you into the first scene, hopefully without any technical difficulty. Hopefully, you should have a new map load up.
Indeed.
Everyone see a map with a train?
Yep.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, and if you you start off the front of the train, but if you scroll on over to the right, you will see that the first train carriage is filled with a number of characters, including yourselves at the back of the train. So, as I said, I've sort of gone with a fairly simple color code system of the players have these golden borders on their tokens, and NPCs have a green or a red. And everyone here's civilians and everyone's friendly, so obviously everything's fine. You are named. You'll notice a few other NPCs have names for reasons which will become apparent. Everyone else is just sort of there, but that doesn't mean you can't interact with them if you would like to. So, as you might have guessed, you are on the Golden Express on Verdant. You haven't reached Umber yet. The Golden Express is the now infamous train, the ATC train that transports people through the Arcgate. It has been travelling for several days because this train essentially goes all the way across from one end of the main continent on Verdant through several cities, all the way to the Verdant side of the Arcgate. I guess it's something for you guys to decide in terms of how long you might have been on this train. Certainly some of the other people on the train have been there anything from several days to some people got on half an hour ago at the last stop.
Well, Theo has been.
Sorry? So I
Well,
didn't.
Theo has been on the train for a couple of hours. He got from the previous. He got on from the previous city.
Okay, fair enough. So also, as you can see, like, it's a fairly full train. Yours is the first carriage of several. Even though it's called the Golden Express, it's actually not that impressive on the inside. Like, the only thing that's golden is some rather cheap golden paint that seems to have been slapped onto some of the handrails and some of the light fittings. Otherwise, it's kind of this fairly basic wooden train carriage hooked up to a pretty old-fashioned model steam train. And obviously, given that people have been in for quite a long time, it doesn't smell the greatest. There's one toilet at the back over here, which is quite disgustingly overused. The windows don't work very well. Everyone's hot. Everyone's tired. Now, one thing I might ask you guys to think about is if you know each other already, or if you might have got to know each other during this train ride. You don't have to know each other, but you might have got talking over the many hours you've been here.
Well, Garrick is kind of playing with cards by himself. He hasn't really been in a talking mode. He's been on the train for like a day now.
Oh, okay.
How far away would you say it's from, like, the north? Like,
I would say maybe a fair distance. I get the impression the north is, you know, maybe a more rugged, far away kind of a land, and this is more like the green, sun-baked fields of like the central continent.
That's it. White Wolf's been on there since it was at, you know, where he got his arm, and I looked around, searched around town for a little bit to find out information on where, you know, the person he was, the person who he's hunting is, where they went.
Okay, he got a lead.
Yeah, so he's asleep.
Okay, fair enough. There's not much doing, so he's asleep. Cool, so for all of you, there have been a few figures that have been sort of particularly notable or possibly particularly irritating on this long journey, and those are the people who are kind of nearest to you. One of them, you might notice there's this chap called Gilcrest sitting at the back here behind White Wolf. He is, well, he is a rather red-faced, rather reedy-voiced, unkempt halfling. He's been there as far as any of you have been on the train, and the reason that you notice him is he has spent the last few days, or at least the whole time you've been there, just leafing through this very large book that he carries with him, and he's sort of revising from it. Like, he keeps reading out these like very long, boring passages and then repeating them to himself again and again and again. So you've heard the same like bits and pieces of this book he's reading out loud too many times to count. You probably know the contents of the book better than he does at this point, through no choice of your own. The other people who you might notice are Nyx and Calpurnia, who are sort of sitting ahead of you. These two are kind of interesting for two reasons. The first is Nyx is this little Saurian girl. So a Saurian is like a lizard person, essentially. And she's quite a young child, and she's very, very excitable. They only got on maybe a few hours ago, but that whole time Nyx has like been jumping up and down her seat. She's been looking out the window, she's been pointing at things, and she's been asking this hobgoblin with her, like, questions about literally everything and anything that happens to be going past the window, and it's maybe getting a little frustrating for those of you who might not be too fond of children. And the other reason these two are interesting is Calpurnia here is a hobgoblin, and those of you who fought in the war, or really anyone who has any passing knowledge of recent events, know that hobgoblins are these not necessarily well-liked people. They were essentially magically cloned, enhanced goblins that were made by the Imperium during the war. And it's very, very odd to see one of them with a Saurian child. It's just not really something you'd see. You wouldn't really think anyone would trust a hobgoblin with their child at all. So it's perhaps a novelty among the very varied members of the train carriage. So outside, you've got all this very like grassy hilled area rolling past, you know, assuming you're awake, and then eventually everyone in the train starts to perk up a bit, and this child, Nyx, she sort of starts getting even more excited than she has been, and she's like, "Oh, Cal, look, that's the art gate." I'm going to just say now, by the way, guys, I can't really do voices. You're just going to have to imagine I'm an incredible voice actor, and this is all very realistic. But, yeah. Nyx gets very excited, pointing out the window and saying, "That's the art gate, that's the art gate." And if you happen to follow where she's pointing, you can see, as the train kind of, like, curves along the track, you can see up ahead of you there is the very famous Arc Gate, which is the portal that allows you to travel to Umber. And it's essentially sort of this giant metal arch, like a silver arch, and attached to it at various points are these formatic engines, which are kind of like steam engines with extra magical components kind of glowing on them. And as the train gets closer, like energy kind of starts to crackle, like little lightning bolts seem to crackle along the arch, and the portal begins to open. And you go through. There's not as much of a fanfare as you might have thought. Like the train does a little jolt, but otherwise it's remarkably smooth. And all of a sudden you're on a completely different world. Like what's outside the window is entirely different.
What?
Sorry?
Nothing.
Okay. So, yeah, so essentially, like, you just suddenly have a jolt of the train, and the green, grassy fields outside are replaced with, well, in your minds you can imagine a Wild West, Texas-y type place, but essentially it's suddenly, instead of green grass, it's this sort of rolling plains land, which is sort of filled with like very sandy coloured grass and dark brown soil and dried up scrub bushes, and just not quite a desert, but it's a very dried out kind of a land. Like very rocky, but very wide ranging. Like the horizon seems to go on for much further than sort of you're used to ever being able to see. And perhaps most noticeably is that there's big, I mean by big I mean, you know, like maybe like half a mile or bigger kind of sized craters every so often in the ground, where there's just these giant craters, which if you look up you can see where the craters have come from. It's like there are islands of rock floating in the sky, seemingly just held aloft by nothing. It's a little similar to places in Outland in Warcraft, If you remember, places like Nagrand had those kind of like floating islands.
Mhm.
So it's like that. Essentially, like there are islands floating in the sky that seem to have just been ripped out of the soil. And the other thing that you can see in these sort of first few moments of transitioning is up ahead there is a rather ramshackle looking but quite large town of wooden buildings kind of up on the horizon, maybe like no more than a mile away. And so all of this you kind of like see in the first few seconds after passing through the gate. And you know, in that way, when maybe something quite new or exciting is happening, time almost seems to go quite slowly. Like you're just sort of looking at all this stuff through the windows.
Yeah, Derek kind of forgets his cards and glues his face to the window.
Okay, well, as you glue your face to the window, and after that initial few seconds of like, you know, wow, this is really different. Happens, the next moment you get distracted by this loud booming noise, and this sort of like a sort of loud explosion from like not in the train but kind of like in the distance. You can kind of feel like a rumble of thunder happens, and you see this red burning ball trailing smoke kind of like flying through the sky, and it sort of just goes just over the train carriage, almost hitting it, and kind of like explodes somewhere on the other side of the train, and the train carriage shakes. And if you look for the source, you see there are several more explosions happening, and there's this small group of dark figures, maybe kind of like not too far off the track ahead of the train. And they have some kind of weapons you can't really see at this distance, but there's another series of these explosions, and you just all see these several balls of fire essentially streaking through the air towards the train, and everybody starts screaming as they realize the train's under attack. The little Saurian girl Nyx like jumps into Calpurnia's arms, shrieking, and you're just kind of transfixed as these burning balls of fire like head towards the train, and then everything just goes black.
This isn't as I planned it.
None of this is as planned.
I'm still asleep.
You're still asleep, you don't care.
It's my guy's a veteran, this sort of stuff.
Just doesn't bother him.
Oh, he knows when to sleep. He'll wake up. Or should I say,
Excuse him.
he wakes up now.
Okay. Well, you all kind of, are you all in the sort of new map?
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens is you all have a moment of being blacked out, although Sebastian just kind of like awakens as if from a quite restful sleep. And but essentially everything has just gone to hell. Smoke has filled the train carriage. The train isn't moving anymore. It seems to have jerked to a sudden stop. The front half of the train is just on fire. And if you look sort of panically through the windows, you see there's fire out on one side, which is essentially the top of the map. The other thing that you all immediately see is there's this sort of red shimmering sphere of energy that's kind of surrounding this back half of the train carriage, and as bits of kind of rubble and like burning debris bounce off it, you realize that essentially whatever this energy field is, it's probably the only reason you're still alive, given how utterly destroyed the front half of the train carriage is. And as the red energy field starts to subside, it kind of like trails into these long, winding lines of smoke, and then those go back into where they came, which is the young Saurian girl from before, Nyx, who's now lying on the floor, essentially unconscious. And as the little red energy trails go into her, these sort of gashes and bloody wounds appear on her flesh. And it's not entirely clear how it happened, but like it does seem that this girl just cast some kind of spell that saved you.
Okay, I draw out my Reinhold Peacemaker and curse a little.
Yeah, that's fair. Does anyone else want to sort of have an immediate reaction to what's going on?
Theo's at least, like, he's never been in a real fight, so he's like, what the shit is going on here?
Okay, so he sort of maybe just freaked out, which is an understandable reaction.
Sebastian looks around and takes in the situation. He looks at the girl, sees everyone, looks who's alive and who's dead, and what shape they're in.
Okay.
Do you know, basically, he just surveys the...
Sure. Okay, so kind of as you can see on the map, as I said, the front of the train is pretty much just in pieces and on fire, and you can see a couple of bodies like slumped over, like what remains of the chairs there, which are these people with crosses through them.
Oh no, Terry Crews Cowboy is dead.
Yeah. And Calpurnia, the hobgoblin, she is kind of in a daze, like she's sort of on the floor. She reaches out towards Nyx, and she's just sort of scrabbling along the floor to check that she's alright, and she's just whispering something you can't quite hear, but her attention is entirely on this unconscious child. And Gilchrist, the halfling with the book, he actually, as far as White Wolf can see, is totally unharmed, but he's huddled up against the wall, clutching that big book he was reading, and he's just kind of shaking, going like, "There's nothing in the book for this. There's no rule for this. What do I do? What do I do?"
Garrick goes to the little Saurian girl and asks Calpurnia if she's okay.
Okay, so this goblin looks up at you, and she goes, "Oh, sorry. Are you asking? What are you asking? Is she okay, or if the kid's okay?"
If the girl keeps okay.
She just kind of shakes her head and goes, "I don't know. She's never used her power like this strongly before. I've never seen her look this bad before." And she sort of tries to pick the girl up, but like she's clearly kind of quite stunned and woozy herself, so she actually can't really... She's not moving right, she's moving almost like she's drunk, like she's trying to help the kid, but she's just sort of nudging her uselessly.
Right, okay, you go.
I was going to say, White Wolf goes to Theo, or calls him Mage Boy because he doesn't know his name at the moment, and asks him if he knows any healing magic.
Well, yes, indeed, I do. I go to her and I cast let's go with Healing Touch.
Okay, sure. So, Healing Touch... Let me refresh my memory quickly. On your character sheet. Okay, so Healing Touch is, yeah, essentially... You don't have it on your sheet, but I think it's a test of 11. So you'd get to make the first roll of the game.
Okay.
So... Oh, I realise I forgot to mention a mechanic. But if you go to the little dice roller on the left-hand menu,
Yep.
and you do your test will be 3d6 plus your intelligence.
One more.
Okay, cool. So you successfully cast it, and sorry, let me get the spell up. It'll be easier.
It's I use 3 magic point for it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you use the more magic points you use, the more dice she heals. Okay, so if you use 3 magic points, you can roll. If you just roll a straight 3d6, then she'll be healed by that much. Okay, cool. So that basically heals her more or less completely. In game terms, you'll see that the NPCs kind of have little health bars above their heads, which kind of gives you a rough idea of what their health is. So essentially, as Theo casts the spell and like lays a hand on her, that while casting the spell, you can all see that these wounds that had appeared on Nyx's like face and arms, they sort of just knit, the flesh slowly knits together as she heals. And she sort of murmurs something like she's dreaming, but that's it. She doesn't wake up. Like the wounds are healed, but she's still completely unconscious. The only thing, as a quick aside, because I realised I forgot to mention this, you might be aware that in the Fantasy Age rules that we use have a mechanic for what we call stunt dice, which is basically when you roll a double, you get to do something extra awesome called a stunt. And the way that works is you have a stunt, one of your 3 dice is a stunt dice. And when you roll a double, the number on the stunt dice is the number of stunt points you have, and then you can spend those stunt points to do special things like extra attacks or more powerful attacks or things like that. And that's all on your cheat sheet. The reason I mention it now is because Roll20 doesn't have like a way of rolling different coloured dice. I'm just going to say that the very first dice on those 3 is the stunt dice. So as it happens, Six didn't roll a double, so he didn't stunt. But just as for future reference, that's how we're going to run it. Okay, so Theo's healed her. While that's going on, Gilcrest, the little halfling, he kind of he gets up and he goes to the window because there's more of these loud, sort of booming noises, like the same booming noises that happened just before the train blew up. And he kind of like runs over to the door here, and he looks out, and he goes, "Oh God, no! It's the Blackpool Bandits, like the gnolls, like the dangerous gnolls." And he just kind of starts panicking. He's like, "I don't know what to do. What do we do?" And he sort of moves away from the door again, looking for his book, and go, "Oh, what do we do about bandits? What? I think I saw something in the book about bandits." And I would like to have you guys roll for initiative, because if you scroll down, you'll notice that there are in fact a group of bandits outside.
Oh crap.
So initiative, I think, is 3d6 plus your dexterity. And if I ask all 3 of you to do that, and I will add on, I will do some rolls for some NPCs. And this is when it gets a little technical again as I add people on to the system.
Kind of make, and also the roles kind of make sense of out of us 3 who would move quickest.
That is true, yes.
Yeah.
Let me do a couple of rolls here. Okay, I'm using the pack leader to essentially represent the bandits, and I'll say they go after Theo just to be sporting. And I'll do another roll for the friendly NPCs. Okay, cool. So, just sort of, this will be to give you guys a little flavour of combat. Through the window, you can see a little what Gilchrist has pointed out to you, that in the distance there are these kind of hunched figures. You can't see them too closely at this distance, but they have this kind of like hunched, feral, like werewolfy kind of a look to them. I don't know if any of you have any like historical or nature focuses at all.
Nay.
Is that nose all round?
Yep.
Okay, so
I think, well, I don't know.
other than the fact that Gilchrist just said, you know, oh, it's that they're Knoll bandits. You don't know what these creatures are. They must be some thing, you know, native to Umber. But as you might sort of
Well,
guess
they
from,
look ugly enough.
they do look ugly enough. You might notice they look a little similar to Gnolls from Warcraft on their tokens, and that's essentially the kind of look that I've stolen for this. In that, yeah, they kind of look like these like hyena people essentially. So they walk on two legs. You can see that there's these 3 warriors. Or maybe you can kind of only glimpse a little because there's this rock in the way. But you can essentially, there's these 3 warriors over here, and they're the ones who are shooting these sort of fireballs into the train, and they seem to be just like shooting them into the train carriages behind you, and also towards the art gate. You like sort of they're firing high up, and it's sort of like going in the direction of where the train came from. That's all you can really see for the moment. Shaq, Garrick has the highest score, so you get to do more or less whatever you'd like to do. I don't know if you've got a cheat sheet or anything in front of you, but basically
Open it.
in combat everyone gets a major action and a minor action, and any number of free actions. A free action is something like very quick, like dropping something or just shouting out an order to someone or something like that. The minor actions you probably care about the most are things like moving, aiming, and I know you've already got your gun out, but if you didn't have your gun out, you might have to do what they call a ready action, which is taking your weapon out and getting it ready to fire. And the major actions is for attacking or running or doing things like defending yourself and that kind of thing. So while we'll keep this like a nice, fairly slow, simple combat, what might you like to do?
Well, firstly, I'll say to Calpurnia that take the kid to some cover, like between the seats, and then I move to next to Gilchrist.
Okay, so you essentially sort of like pointing to where she might, like, or just telling her get the kid in some cover.
Yeah, I'll point to next to Sebastian.
Okay,
Between seats there.
sure. Okay,
Should be relatively cover.
okay.
And then I'll just say to Gilchrist that do you know how to fight?
Okay, he kind of looks at you with sort of wide-eyed horror, and then looks down at the sort of, you know, fairly basic revolver that's strapped to his hip, and he goes, "I've completed several training exercises."
Okay, I'll point to the toilet there, over there, and say that go there, it's safe there.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so he kind of just nods, like, agreeably, like, that's probably the best idea he's heard all day. and it's not quite his turn yet, but I'll just move him for the sake of it. So he just kind of bolts in there and just hides in the toilet, carrying his giant book. You've technically got a major action if you want. I don't know, you could just move more and run, or essentially where you're standing, you can see out a little bit into the sort of surrounding area.
Do I see the scout over there?
Yes, that's probably the knoll that you can see the best.
Yeah, I'm gonna shoot it.
Okay, cool. So, what kind of range does your gun have? I'm sure it's fine, to be honest. I'm sure it's in long
Short
range.
is 12 and long is 24.
Okay, so if you use the little ruler in the left-hand toolbar, the way that I've set this up is it measures in units because it doesn't have a way of measuring yards, but if you just treat units as yards, each square is 2. So the scout's totally in range, long range anyway, of your Peacemaker revolver. So yeah, go ahead and roll to hit the scout.
Alright.
Which I believe is for you 3d6 plus 3.
Yes. Let's get the crow.
Okay, that will hit a knoll. The only thing I'll say is, if you can, please try and use the like the dice roller on the left rather than the character. The character sheet one is super helpful, but the only thing is it doesn't show us the different dice you rolled for stunt dice purposes, unless you hover over it. Yeah. So it's fine if you want to do that and check it every time if you stunted, but it's probably easier just to use the left-hand side one. But for now, yeah, you definitely hit it. You didn't stunt, but you hit the knoll, so if you want to roll for damage.
Yep. 7 damage.
Cool, okay, so...
Oh, actually,
yeah?
Wasn't there a +2 or 1 or something on the damage from the weapon? Because I just added the d6 plus my accuracy.
Oh yeah, let me just check that.
I think it's +2.
I think it's +2 too, but I'll just check.
So,
yeah, Peacemakers have a natural 1d6 plus 2, but you get to add your perception to it.
right, so it's 9 damage.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so it takes 9. Some of that's reduced by armor, but essentially... this scouting knoll, who maybe only really just looked up, noticing that something was alive in the train wreckage, looks up and then just is knocked back against this rock by this bullet that just like plows into its shoulder and sends it staggering back, and it yelps out in pain.
And I'll yell that my adventure's not gonna stop this early.
Okay, cool. So that would be the end of your turn. Next in the order is the friendly NPCs. So Calpurnia is going to do as Garrick suggested, which is she carries Nyx kind of like into cover. So I'll just put Nyx in there and Calpurnia there. So essentially like just, and although the tokens are next to each other on the map, essentially Calpurnia is like, have just got Nyx on the floor and is covering her with her own body. Calpurnia does also have this rifle strapped to her back. It's what any of you who might have served in the war know as a pig iron, which is essentially this sort of like quite simple rifle, which doesn't have much range, but it has a lot of kick. So she kind of takes that out and holds on to it like she's ready to defend this girl if anyone comes near. Gilcrest, we kind of already did his turn on Shaq's turn, which is he's run to the toilet and he's fairly useless at this point. You hear some sort of panicked mutterings from inside the toilet, but that's all you know of Gilcrest now. Okay, so next would be Theo in the order. What would you like to do?
Is this thing here a window?
There are windows. There's essentially a window next to every seat. So yeah, you can move there and see out a window if you want to.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, cool.
And then I cast a protective winds.
Okay, cool. What does that do? Actually, I'll look at it in the rulebook, but if you could
It makes
tell us.
like wind swirl around me and help deflect bullets and range attacks.
Okay, cool. So it's an air spell.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So you need to roll to check that the spell is successful, and you have a target number of 10. So again, it's 3d6 plus your intelligence. Okay, cool. So you successfully cast that. So I'm assuming that the wind. Are you sort of casting the wind on the outside, the inside, or just everywhere?
It's just like very localized, just around me.
Okay,
Like-
so around you the wind kind of like starts moving very quickly,
Yep.
and this gives you a bonus to your defense against ranged attacks, and as well for people next to you. So that's pretty useful given you're standing next to Nyx and Calpurnia. Okay, cool. Is there anything else? That's your actions done, but you can do free action stuff if you want, or we can move on.
No, nothing comes to mind.
Okay, cool. So moving on to the pack leader's turn, which is what I'm using to essentially, I'm just going to cheat and do all the gnolls essentially in one turn. So this scout, who has just taken a rather nasty shot from Garrick, has yelped out in pain. She sort of staggers over this way, and starts barking in what seems to be quite it's not just like the barking of a dog, like it's kind of, there's a rhythm to it, but she sort of lets out this series of barks to the other gnolls, who seem to sort of pay attention for the first time. This warrior gnoll here, actually, sorry, no, this the pack leader kind of, who you can't, I mean, maybe Theo can see the pack leader, I think, but the rest of you maybe can't see it, but you hear this loud sort of bellowing, roaring that he makes, and a series of barks, which maybe is some kind of language. It's not very clear. And then one of these warriors comes running around the rock, kind of dodging this burning bush, and
Oh shit.
he just literally is carrying an axe. So he kind of comes running there. He sees that like there's, you know, he can see you guys kind of like silhouetted through the windows and the doors of the train, and he lets out like another loud bark, and then he for his major action he's going to run, so he essentially moves again, and he just sort of starts pounding on the door, because I'm pretty sure Garrick didn't open the door, so he just essentially has run up to the train and is kind of like battering at it, and sort of bellowing in a rather animalistic way. You can see big slavering jaws, and it's rather unpleasant. But you're safe for now on the other side of the door.
Yeah, I take a step back and I'm a little bit shocked.
Okay. The other warriors, like, they move around a little bit, but nothing else much is going on with them yet. So then it's White Wolf's turn, or Sebastian. I've put you Sebastian in this, but White Wolf.
Do I have to roll anything to jump out the window?
Oh, like literally through the window, like the glass window.
Yeah.
For that, I'm gonna say maybe make a dexterity check because, you know, you are essentially, you'd be smashing through the window. You can't just open it and hop out. You'd be like shoving your weight through the window in a heroic fashion, which is fine. But I'd say make a dexterity check.
Which is about 3d6.
That will be 3d6 plus whatever your dexterity is, which
0.
is 0. And essentially, that's against a number that I use off the ability test table. You guys have access to this as well, but essentially, I'm now making a note for myself of how difficult I think doing that will be, and then you roll and see if you're successful. Okay, so yes, you, in a suitably heroic and exciting fashion, like just leap shoulder first through the window. It shatters easily, and you kind of do a roll and land on your feet outside the train.
I can move my character.
Oh no! Technical difficulties have struck. I reckon I can fix that. Hang on.
No, I'm an idiot.
Oh? Do you have the cursor selected? Ah, there you go. Okay, so that can be part of your move. You can move further if you wish, up to your speed.
No, I'm just going to move there.
Okay, cool. So you essentially jump out the window and see this gnoll, this hyena person with a big axe in one hand and like glowing red eyes, big slobbery teeth, and it kind of like almost like it wasn't expecting you to come through the window, so it just sort of like turns with its jaw open.
Then I'm going to attack it.
I thought you might.
But also, when I jumped out the window, I shouted to everyone, "Cover me!"
Okay, yep, sure,
You know, because I'm the only melee guy.
true.
So now I get out I roll with my longsword.
Okay, cool. So your longsword is 3d6 plus 2 to attack with. Oh, okay, cool. So you've done the first stunt of the game because you've rolled a double. So not only have you hit, but you've also generated a very impressive 6 stunt points because 6 is the like the first dice is the stunt dice. So before we get into how much damage you do, you can, if you wish, check out the combat stunts on your cheat sheet and see what you might like to do. Like you can buy like a big one, like a 5-point stunt if you wish, or you can do like a 3.1 and a 2.1. I might recommend there's one on there called Lethal Blow, which is pretty nasty, or there's some which allow you to attack multiple times, like lightning attack. So what might you like to do?
So can I do one of them, or can I do 6 points of them?
You can do 6 points of them, like so you can do like a 2-point stunt. You could do 3 2-point stunts, or a 3-point and a 2-point and a 1-point, or you can spend them however you like. I mean, 6 is pretty awesome, to be honest. Oh, we've lost him.
No. Oh no.
The choice of picking the right stunt was just overwhelming. Oh no, he's back.
I think Discord crashed.
Ah, bugger.
Because gonna say I'll do a piercing. They wear armor, don't they? Even if
They have basic, like, they're kind of, it's kind of wearing like a kind of like a leather jerkin and like maybe a few metal bits strapped to it. Like, it's very crude armor, but they are wearing armor.
Screw it. I'll just do a lethal blow.
Okay, cool. Which essentially gives you an extra 2d6 damage on your attack. So if you want to roll for your damage, which would normally be 2d6 plus 3, but it will be 4d6 plus 3 because you're doing lethal blow. Whoa. Okay, so shockingly that was not the best, sadly, but you still did an awful lot of damage. 8, so whilst it doesn't kill it, like, you essentially do this very impressive kind of strike that cuts it from like one shoulder right down across its chest, through its armor, and it sort of staggers back with a gaping wound right across its chest, and it howls in a mixture of anger and pain.
Also, do stay aware as well.
You can, because you've got 1 point left over after your blow. So essentially, you're aware of everything that's happening around you. You can make a perception test with a target of 11, with a focus of your choice, and if you succeed, the GM, me, can make you aware of something in the battle that might be useful to you.
That's another 3d6.
Yeah, what kind of focus might you like to use? Or I'll also let you make just a general test if you don't have anything particular in mind. Or you can use one of your...
Intelligence.
Okay.
No, the focuses mean like leadership and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'll do it with my leadership.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So that'd be 2. So
Okay, cool. So you do that successfully. You don't get extra... You roll the double, but you don't get extra stunt when you're doing stunt stuff. So essentially, you pass, and it was using your leadership. And I know that your character's quite a seasoned veteran of many wars. So what you notice as you wound this knoll, and it kind of cries out, it's looking back towards its pack. And as it howls out in pain, there's this answering call from behind this rock where the pack leader is. And even though you don't really understand these creatures, you almost understand it as like the same way an infantryman would call out to its sergeant. Like, there's something that reminds you of that. So you can instantly tell that these warriors are kind of very reliant on their leader, like, to function as a military unit. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Basically, I realise it's a pack animal. Take out the leader, and we should be better.
Basically, yes. So that was a good introduction to stunts, I think. I think it will get quicker as we get a bit more familiar with how they work. And next we are going essentially back to the beginning of the turn order. So it's Garrick's turn. Garrick has obviously been standing by the door, seen this gnoll sort of run up to the train to attack, but then White Wolf yelled, "Cover me," and jumped out the window to attack it.
Yeah, and I look visibly relieved that he did that, so that no one won't hit me.
Yes, which is reasonable.
Indeed. So, well, he's now blocking the door, no, so I can run out. But
He's blocking that door. I will say there's also a door here, out the back, if you wanted to get out, or you could realistically barge past White Wolf, because you're allowed to move through friendly characters. So you've got two forms of exit there if you want to.
yeah, I probably don't see the other gnolls over there. Or
I think you can reasonably see, like, you've seen the scout, and you can probably maybe catch sight of this guy over here. Actually, you can probably see everyone except the pack leader, because the pack leader's behind this rock.
yeah, do I notice ranged weapons on those gnolls?
Sorry?
Do I notice ranged weapons on them?
Okay, so the warrior that attacked the train just came at you with an axe. Maybe make a perception roll, and I'm just wondering if you have any like military law focuses
Nope,
or anything like
just
that.
Tracking and riding.
Okay, so if you just want to make a perception test, so 3d6 plus 1.
From no, good. But 7.
Sorry, one sec, I've just got a message from Nova. Yeah, I just got a message from Nova saying, sorry, he forgot, but I'm just asking him if he wants to join us now or when the combat's finished. But yes, let's look. Okay, so you failed your perception test, I'm afraid. So I'll just say, I just at this distance, you like obviously this this gnoll over here like is kind of slightly obscured by this bush that's caught fire, so you can see that the gnoll is there, but you can't see through the smoke anything more than that it's there.
Yeah. Was that a minor action or major?
Sorry?
Was that a minor or major action?
I don't think the test is an action at all. I'll just say it's what you can see, so I'll call that a free action.
Okay, so well, he's at point blank range, so I'll just shoot the goblin in front of me through the window. Or the door, actually.
Yeah, sure. So I mean the door was closed. But
does it have like any window?
yeah, I mean you've been looking out, so it's got a small window. You could reach through the window to attack, like, or you could open the door. I'm gonna say if you just try to like point your gun through the window, it's gonna be harder. So I'll probably give you a penalty to hit, but obviously you'll be safer. So it's your call.
Right. Well, I'll kick open the door and then shoot it.
Okay, very suitably cowboy and heroic. Okay, so you
Indeed.
swing open the door. We'll call that your minor, and you unload your gun at point blank range into this gnoll in front of you. So if you want to roll to hit, Okay, you hit, and you also stunt. So you get to explore the delights of stunting as well. So you rolled a double, and the first dice is a 5, so you've got 5 stunt points.
Hmm.
Do you have a list of combat stunts?
Yeah, I'm just going looking at them.
Sure.
Well, lethal blow is pretty lethal.
Lethal blow is lethal. That's
Indeed.
true.
Ooh, actually, yeah. Well, skirmish would be good to actually. I could burn all the points to skirmish, so I can move 10 yards.
You can, yes.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, so
I kick the door open and I shoot the null, and as I run past it, and I'll keep running.
okay, so you want to sort of burst out shooting and moving.
Yes.
Okay, so how far do you want? Oh, you're going to skirmish it for all of your stunt points, or just for a few of them?
Yes, all of them.
Okay, sure. So it can move back. Which direction do you want to send it back?
Mm. Probably there, like a good distance from the nose, and so that I can see the leader behind the rock.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. Right. So if the
Up there.
warrior, like, I could just move him back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to there, or I could move him like at an angle if you want.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, cool. So I'm just getting messages from various people on Discord. Okay, so I guess how that might work is you throw the door open and you... I mean, we'll only say you use 1 ammo, but you essentially kind of like surprise the knoll. It sort of staggers back a few yards, and then you fire a shot, maybe like kind of low, that forces it to retreat. You do need to roll for damage as well, since you did hit it. Okay, so it's still alive, but you send it staggering backwards with a bullet in its leg, so it kind of like staggers and ends up like retreating, like it's essentially running away from you, but it's very badly wounded. And yeah, I think that was a good use of a stunt. So that'll be your turn done, and then we'd go to the NPCs quickly. Gilcrest, I'm just going to say, is just hiding in the loo for the foreseeable future. Calpurnia, I think, heard the order from White Wolf when he jumped out the window to cover him. So after he jumped out the window, she moved up to the window he smashed through and is sort of aiming her pig iron out of the window. And I'm going to say anything that comes any closer than that Knoll warrior, like, will take a shot from her. So she's kind of like ready, like with her rifle, to shoot at anything that comes near the train. And then it's Theo's turn. I will say Theo is quite close to this smoke cloud, and that the fire is at the front of the train is increasing, so maybe it might be starting to get like a bit difficult to breathe. You might cough a few times.
Is the door is open?
Yeah, the Garrick just went out the door.
So I move the door
Yep.
And I shoot the warrior one.
Okay, cool. Make an attack roll. I'm assuming you're using your Peacemaker, although you could do an Arcane Blast if you wanted.
I use my feet.
Okay. So 3d6 plus 3. You just clip it with the shot, so it hits. Oh, you have also stunted. Everyone's stunted. It's very exciting. So you've got three stunt points because you roll the double, and the first dice is a 3. So you could, well, do anything up to 3 points. You could spend them on a lightning attack, or you could use them for some of the cheaper stunts. Have a quick look and see what you might want to use.
I think I'll actually do that.
Okay, cool. So essentially, you will get to make a second attack with your after you complete this one. So roll damage to complete your first attack.
Do I actually see the scout from here?
You can see the scouts and all the warriors. The only thing you can't see is the pack leader because he is behind that big rock. But everything else you can see quite happily.
So, damage roll.
Damage roll for the first attack, yeah.
So I get perception plus the weapon.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, that was a good shot. I'm gonna say it's so good that the warrior who was already kind of like limping away and bloody, like just takes that final shot to the back and freezes for a moment and then just crumples down into the dust
Poor guy.
because he is deaded. Do you actually say that? Okay, cool. And then in the, you know, being the, you know, quick draw cowboy gun mage that you are, you immediately fire another shot. What would you like to do with it? Who would you like to attack?
I take a shot at the scout.
Okay, cool. So same again, just roll to attack and roll damage.
Take a shot at Garrick. Yeah, you can do that.
I assume that hits.
Oh wait, sorry. Yes, you definitely hit. And just roll for damage. Wow. Okay, so your second shot just strikes that scout right through the eye, and she also just falls down dead, like just gone. So essentially, in the space of half a second, you've just like looked out the train, fired off 2 shots, and 2 gnolls just fall down dead, which is pretty cool.
Remind me not to get in his bad side.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to pass the turn to the gnolls, who you've just brutally attacked. So the pack leader comes charging out from behind this rock. So you hear this like feral roar, and this gnoll just comes running up. It comes around the rock, The first thing he sees is White Wolf, so then he runs. So he's not going to get to attack, but he's essentially charging forward with an axe in each hand and runs straight towards White Wolf, bellowing and roaring and making various hyena animal noises. The warriors... Sorry?
As he's doing that.
Okay, cool.
I yell, I cannot cover for that.
Sorry?
I yell, I cannot cover for that.
Uh,
Cover for me.
You can't, but you know what? I did say that Calpurnia would fire at anyone who came near the train, so I'm going to say she just takes a quick free shot at him. So if you'll just allow me to roll some dice quickly. Remind myself of Calpurnia, but I'm pretty sure I made her OP.
Good for us.
Yeah.
Always the problem with game devs, they make the early game too easy.
You're learning. Okay, so she fires off a shot as that guy's charging forward. She hits him, and her pig iron does...
Also, does she get the thingy attack for bleeding? She rolled it before.
I'm gonna say... Yeah, no, yeah, NPCs do, actually. So I will say that... she can't really use a dual... I'm gonna say she'll use a lightning attack. So she fires once... Hello, you're right.
Hello.
We are just resolving a combat, but you're welcome to watch it finish quickly, and then we'll... I think what we'll do is we're going to finish the combat, which I don't think will take much longer. Then we might take a little break, but then you can just jump in to the action sort of after the break, if that suits you.
From the training is unconscious and he wakes up after.
Sure. So what you've missed there, essentially, the group was on a train on Verdant, which is like the home world, and they went through the gate onto Umber, which is the Wild West world. But as soon as the train passed through the magical gate that takes them onto Umber, the train was attacked by these Knoll bandits. So hyena people are attacking the train, and that's essentially you caught up. So I'm just gonna finish what I was doing. Okay, Calpurnia fires off a shot. She did a pathetic amount of damage, sadly. The first shot just bounced off the pack leader's armor, but she stunted, as was pointed out, so she gets to fire another shot. So she quickly reloads and hits, and this time she actually finds her mark, and she catches the pack leader by his shoulder, so it kind of takes a bit of the wind out of his charge. Okay, so now it's White Wolf's turn. Suitably, as the leader is... Oh, sorry, actually, I didn't quite finish the rest of the gnolls. So the other gnolls are just essentially moving up. You can see that both of them have these kind of like bulky, long weapons in their hand, like big two-handed weapons. You've not really seen anything that like it before, but it's essentially like a sort of what looks like a very crude rocket strapped to a piece of wood. But that's all they do. So now it's White Wolf's turn.
And I shout to everyone, aim for the pack leader first. Without him, they're nothing. Because of the thing.
Yes, the thing that you noticed about them. Yep.
So that means everyone else. And then
Yep.
I'm just attacking with my longsword.
Okay, cool. Roll for that. I quite like the mental image, actually, of you kind of like yelling out instructions as you ready your sword. Unfortunately, you're so busy yelling out instructions that you don't see the leader sidestepping, and your sword kind of just misses him. Maybe it cuts a hair from his head, but like you miss him essentially. Sorry. You've technically still got a minor action if you want to use it. So you could put your guard up or move.
I'll put my guard up.
Okay. I've not really looked too much into this one, but essentially you can choose to put an additional +1 or +2 to your defense for the next round, but you won't be as good at making ability tests. And the +1 +2 sort of effect. Like if you say, oh, I've got +1 from my defense from my guard up, then you -1 to ability test. If you take +2, then you're -2 for ability. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm going to go +2.
Okay, cool.
Because I can imagine that Noel's going to be
He might be. I'm going to give you a little... oh, maybe not that one.
Isn't it just a shield?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, that'll do. So that can represent your guard up. Okay, cool. Next, we're going back to Garrick, who has run out into these rocks over here. What would you like to do? So you've seen the pack leaders charging at White Wolf, and there's these other two white warriors that have come around the rocks carrying some kind of weapons that you're not quite sure what they do.
Well, I'm a bit worried about the warriors. I hope they counter me, and I aim, take aim at the attack leader and shoot at its back.
Okay, cool. So you get a +1 bonus for aiming on your attack roll. You are kind of hitting in the back. I feel like being generous and saying maybe have an extra +1 for essentially shooting it in the back while it's occupied. So I'll say you can have an extra +2 to your attack roll. So normally you'd be 3d6 +3, now you're 3d6 +5. And you hit it square in the back. Not the most honourable thing, but you did it. Roll for damage.
Actually, I forgot it earlier, but I got this ability
Okay. Oh, pinpoint attack.
Yeah, that one.
Oh yeah, that's actually that's essentially your super cool rogue ability. So you get extra damage if your d6 is higher. What's your sorry, if your dexterity is higher. Okay, so let me have a quick look at the null profile. I'm afraid it's got the same dexterity as you, so you don't get to use that.
Oh,
I know, it's very sad.
oh well.
Do the
Shut the back.
once per round thing apply as a combat round or as a session?
Sorry, the
Pinpoint attack says once per round.
a round is essentially like everyone having one turn.
Ah, okay.
So by saying a round, it's kind of essentially a rogue can do that each time they get a go.
Because I know some D&D games have it that you can use once per session.
Yeah, no, this is essentially every time that person gets a go. So do you want to roll your... have you rolled damage? You have.
Yeah, 10 damage.
Okay, so 10 damage. Yeah, so it takes a shot straight in the back. It roars in pain, but it doesn't seem to slow it down as it kind of like as it's kind of like circling around White Wolf. So then it's the NPCs go. Calpurnia essentially is guarding Nyx, but she'll take another quick shot at the pack leader since White Wolf's been yelling out instructions to attack it. She hits it, but she only wings it and only does a small amount of damage. And Gilchrist is hiding in the toilet. Theo, what would you like to do after that quick fire round you had last time? Yeah, exactly. What would you like to do now for an encore?
I'll take a shot at the
Okay, cool. You can use your minor to aim if you want, since you're not moving, or you can attack and then move afterwards.
I'll aim.
Okay, cool. So you get +1 to hit. Okay, so you hit, and once again you stunt. You get 4 stunt points. So you can do what you like with them. I mean, my advice would be you could do something similar to what you did before with a lightning attack, or you could perhaps do two-point stunts. There's stuff in there like Mighty Blow or Pierce Armor or Knock Prone that have some interesting like effects on the combat.
I think I'll use Mighty Blow and Knock Prone.
Okay, cool. So Mighty Blow means you'll get an extra d6 damage on your attack.
So I shoot on the head or something.
Yeah, so essentially you, instead of rolling 1d6 plus 2 for damage, you'll get 2d6 plus 2. Okay, cool. So he takes 9 damage. But you essentially shoot him through the neck. So he takes a lot of damage, and like it sends him like staggering backwards, and he falls to the ground with blood just spurting out of this big hole you made in his neck. Which is gross. So I've given him a little symbol to show that he's knocked down on the ground. Knocking prone means essentially that people will get bonuses to hit him while he's on the ground. So that was pretty badass. Again, I will now pass the turn to the Gnolls, who are probably quite pissed off at this point. The pack leader kind of like tries to howl, but he's got this hole in his throat, so it's just more of this sort of like choking, blood sputtering noise, and he can't get up. He just sort of swings wildly with his axe at White Wolf's leg next to him. So again, I'm just going to quickly check his rules. Okay. What's White Wolf's defense? Okay, so he hits you. He also stunts. So I'm going to say he goes for a knock prone stunt as well, and a lightning attack. So essentially, this attack at your leg is gonna knock you on your ass.
No.
No?
Does my +2 affect anything?
Sadly not, because you're normally 12, right? Yeah, so that takes you up to 14, and if it's equal, it hits. I believe. Just double check. Yes, if the attack roll is equal or more than the target's defense, it hits. So just give me 1 second. So he hits you for 5 damage minus your armor. Okay, so if you want to adjust your health in your little green circle, just reduce it by 1. Cool, and you. So it doesn't hurt you very much, but it kind of like you kind of like fall forward onto one knee. You know, from that sudden attack, and he gets to make a lightning attack, which hits, and this time the axe catches you quite nastily in the side, so that'll be 11 damage minus your armor. Cool. Okay. Yeah. So essentially, you've got a cut in the side, not too serious, but it hurts. The other gnolls, which I also do in this turn, they are going to fire with their weapons, and all of you hear that same booming noise that you associate with the weapons that blew up the train as they launch. What you now realise as the fireballs fly towards you are some sort of crude rocket launcher. Basically, they fire 2 shots into the side of the train. So, like, one is going over here, and one is going to where Theo is sort of hiding. So the way this works is essentially similar to a grenade. Basically, Theo, you're going to have to make a dexterity check to kind of throw yourself out of harm's way. So if you just make a straightforward dexterity check. Okay, so you pass that. So you you essentially throw yourself out the way as this rocket essentially slams into the side and explodes. And I'll just make a similar test for Calpurnia to throw herself over Nyx to protect her.
Do I need to make a throw for the Calpurnia, or is it just normal?
No, it's essentially gone over. It's essentially hitting the side of the train. So, and you're on the floor already. So I'm just sort of assuming you're okay. So Calpurnia does that successfully, but the train's a bit messed up, which I will just represent quickly. Okay, so you should see it. There's a little more fire on the train now from those rocket attacks, but you both, Theo and Calpurnia, managed to kind of like jump out the way and prevent anyone from taking any harm. I will say now that like the train carriage is very rapidly filling up with smoke, and it's White Wolf's turn. So it's White Wolf's turn. You're scrabbling around on the floor with this pack pack leader Noel thrashing around, wildly swinging axes at you, while the two of you scrabble around in the dirt trying to get to your feet.
Can I attack him while I'm doing? Can I try and attack him while I'm on the ground?
You can. You won't get the bonus for him being on the ground because you're kind of on the ground as well. But yeah, you can either you could use your move to stand up and attack him and get the bonus, or you can just fight with him in the dirt. It's your call.
Attack and do the. I regain my. You said I was on 1 minute.
Yeah.
I regain my composure and attack.
Okay.
I'll do a.
So that's your money. I'll say you can move around him like 1 square if you want, in addition to your movement, or you can just stay where you are.
Also, I have I don't get I get penalty of -2 though.
Oh no, that was just for the round, so you're okay again now. I've taken the marker off. Like the guard up essentially lasted for a round, and it's now the round's gone round to your turn again, so you don't have that negative anymore.
What do I get if I get all 3 the same?
It's still a double, so you still stunt, and so you get 2 stunt points, except sadly, even with the bonus for the target being prone, you don't hit, and you can't stunt if you don't hit. So I'm afraid to say that, like, while getting to your feet amid all these explosions going on around you, you can't quite focus enough to hit your target. So now the turn will pass to Garrick, who's just seen a bunch of explosions go off.
Yeah. Firstly, I'm really glad that I'm not being trained anymore,
Yeah, sure.
and then I'm really impressed about that pack leader who still has fighting, considering how much we beat.
Yeah.
And then I'll end this game.
Fair enough. Possibly muttering some badass catchphrase. So, do you want to aim, or are you going to move and then attack? Okay, so aiming plus the fact he's on the ground means you'll get a +2 to hit.
So it's 3d6 plus 5.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, yeah, you hit with 5 stunt points. I believe, like, last week with the other group, nobody stunted once. You guys are stunt machines.
I think I'll take lightning attack.
Okay, so resolve this attack and then you can do the next one. Is there anything you'd like to do with the other 2, or would you like to apply the other 2 to your other attack?
I think I'll take mighty blow for this attack.
Okay, cool. So this attack, you're doing a really good attack with an extra d6 damage. So essentially, your Peacemaker is shooting for 2d6 plus 5 damage.
Yeah.
Cool, go for it. Right, okay, well, you aimed for his head, and you succeeded, because you fire off this shot, and the Knoll's head just pops. Like, the skull shatters, there's blood everywhere, a chunk of brain kind of ends up on White Wolf's coat. It's gross, but you've succeeded in doing that. And, in this, moment of adrenaline-fueled combat, you're firing off another shot with your lightning attack. So, what would you like to do with that?
Warrior number 2.
Warrior number 2, I choose you.
Indeed.
Sure, so, roll attack. This is just your regular attack roll. So you hit, and roll for damage, just regular damage, so 1d6 plus 5. Okay, so you wound it quite nastily. You hit it in the arm, and it drops the weapon in its hand. Right. So it comes to the end of Garrick's turn. The pack leader is dead. The two warriors, on seeing their leader's head explode, and then having bullets fired at them from Garrick off to the side, make a series of high-pitched yelping noises, and then they basically leg it. So they just run off to the side here, like not even looking back. They're just going as quickly as they can. As they run away, sort of in the same direction as they're running on the horizon, you see this dust cloud rising, and it gets larger and larger and larger, but these gnolls don't even seem to care. They're just running in a blind panic, and this dust cloud just kind of swallows them up. You hear the sound of several gunshots, and then you never see those gnolls again. They are gone. And then out of this dust cloud, you see several people riding a variety of creatures. Mostly, there's a group of dwarves riding what are called brocks, which they are essentially giant badger-like creatures, which dwarves and halflings like to ride with saddles. And then next to those dwarves, there's a number of orcs and humans who are more conventionally riding horses and wearing cowboy hats. So I'm just going to have a couple of them show up.
Wasn't he on the train?
It's...
Was he on the train?
Shh! They've all... These are their relatives who look a lot like them. And so this is sort of like, yeah, the various like group on their mounts, and then at the head of them there is this very fiery red-haired and red-bearded dwarf, with like kind of riding with a gun, like a gun sort of strapped almost everywhere. It's like a gun at each hip, and then like another gun strapped to a belt that goes around his shoulder, and carrying a tankard of beer. And he kind of like rides his badger in, brings it to a halt. The others all kind of like halt beside him, and this guy gets off his badger and, in a dwarvish Scottish voice that I cannot do, sort of like takes one look around like the scene and says, "Well, we came to help you. I can see you didn't need it. You might want to get out of that train before, before the fire spreads, though." And so then Calpurnia sort of comes out carrying Nyx, and Gilcrest sort of like finally comes out of the toilet and leaves. And this dwarf kind of like, he comes forward, sort of gives you all like a nod and like a look over, and like he's clearly impressed, like he's like, okay, like they came on a rescue mission, and he's found you guys fighting them off. So he says, "We didn't think we'd find anyone alive after the mess they made out of that train. But I'm glad to see you, even if it's not exactly the friendliest welcome to Umber you could hope for. Let's get away from these flames. Me and my boys can give you a ride into town, and then we'll work out what we're going to do about all this mess.
Would be appreciated.
My character Fob, Niels, the pack leader, says Umber is better, says a few words and then pick up the.
Okay, sure.
As in, if like after every battle he does a right for the dead people who have been killed in the battle, and for like for the lost, like the people on the trail. It's like his religion is somewhat of respecting the dead and respecting your enemy who will do you fall. So he basically kneels, says like a prayer, but it's not. And then-
Yeah. Sure. Okay, cool. I was just wondering if... I know Shaq has to head off. Unfortunately.
Makeshift rocket launcher because that can pique my interest.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, one of the you find one of them. Well, no, you find two, but like essentially, it's like a wooden stock with like sort of a basic rocket strapped to it, and then you like almost like a firework. You can see like maybe they light the fuse and it shoots off.
How would you manage?
There's only one sort of with a rocket strapped to it left. The others kind of are all done, like they're one-shot weapons. But you can pick up the used one if you want, but I'm assuming you're more interested in the one with the rocket still attached to it.
Yeah, or actually I'm just interested in rocket launchers.
Okay, so maybe you remove...
Pick up the launcher too.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so if you just want to add that to your character sheet somewhere in your equipment, that you've got a crude rocket launcher, and I'll add the stats to it on your character sheet later. Is there anything else anyone else would
Look for gold
what, like where would you like to look for gold?
in the dead.
Oh, you wanna loot the bodies? Okay, they don't have any gold on them, but they have their various weapons. So they've got like the dead warriors and scouts have an axe, and the pack leader kind of has like two slightly nicer made axes. Like the warrior and the scout, they've got like basic stone axes, whereas the pack leader's got kind of like these axes made of sort of jagged dark metal. Other than that, they don't really seem to have much on them apart from like a few odd trinkets, like sort of necklaces with animal teeth on them, a couple of like sort of small wooden carved objects, but nothing that strikes you as particularly valuable. That's cool. Sorry you have to leave us, but thank you for playing, and we can update you on what happens in the next bit.
Yeah. Also,
Bye, Shaq.
question, how much XP do we get for this?
Right, so the way XP works, I'm not going to do a strict, like, you earn XP, and when you earn a certain amount, you level. I'm using just a slightly easier narrative leveling up process, so you don't need to record XP. It's more just, you will level up when you achieve certain things in the story. Right. So, since Shaq's had to go, and we need to bring Nova in, what I suggest now is, unless there's anything else you'd like to do, maybe you join this dwarf and his friends, like for their ride into town, and we'll call a break there, just to allow people to get a drink, get something to eat, whatever like that.
Yeah, sure.
and then
How long a break?
sorry.
How long a break do you need?
20 minutes. So if we meet back at 5:02. And then after the break, we can introduce Nova's character. Cool. Okay, so I will see you back in 20 minutes. Where the fuck is this character?